All right, good morning, everyone. It is Monday, March 15th. And judging by the chat, hey, Miss Hayes.
Okay, I see when you know you can say that.
Did I tell you they were going to say it? Thank you, Esther. Oh my gosh, y'all are hilarious. We've never been at a point where schools were forced to close down and, everybody was forced to do distance learning. There's a lot more multitasking that is happening since the pandemic because not only am I a teacher, I'm also a parent. So while I am teaching my classes, I still have to manage my own children, making sure that they're logged on, answering questions that they don't want to ask their teachers because now I'm right there and it's like, Mom, how do I do this problem? We've had a number of students who have had COVID. Some of them, their entire families have had COVID. We've had students who have had family members pass away from COVID. So dealing with the illness itself has been a huge challenge for the students.
It's called self-discipline. I go to bed at 10:30.
And everyone who's going back in the building has to physically in the building and they're like 8:15ish versus if you're at home.
The concern about going back to the building is not about the students at all. It's actually about safety. I think if conditions were different or the pandemic was maybe not at pandemic level, right? If the numbers have decreased significantly enough that we could feel safer with going back in the building, then maybe it would be different. But a lot of us are still concerned that, there's not enough research to say that the vaccine is going to prevent illness or is going to keep you from getting COVID. So there's still that risk of contracting the disease. I have a child who is, she's asthmatic and a severe asthmatic at that, who's spent many days in the hospital and almost lost her life at one point just from a respiratory infection, not something as severe as COVID. So for me to be back into a building surrounded by all these people, my risk of contracting COVID is greater, and I cannot afford to get sick and pass that on to my children. I don't have respiratory issues, but my child does, and so I'm not willing to risk her life and her safety to teach. The union has been very instrumental in being a voice for teachers, but I think a lot of teachers have had to speak up for themselves. We've been in professional developments of how to help students transition back into the building, but what preparation has been made to help teachers deal with the stress and anxiety of being in the building? And that was one of the questions that they didn't have an answer for. The teachers also need support in managing the stress and managing the anxiety of, being here. I'm at risk. We want to live. When you go into the buildings, there's tape throughout the entire buildings on the floor. The hallways are divided. Lockers have been closed off so that the students aren't bunched up in locker areas, so they have to carry their belongings with them. My particular school has provided masks, gloves, cleaning supplies for each of the rooms. If you are in a classroom without windows, that you would possibly get an air purifier for your classroom. As a single parent right now, I do have to consider maybe looking into options that will allow me to remain virtual. I have teacher friends who are in other states who are looking for exit strategies because we just do not feel that enough safeguards are in place to ensure the safety of teachers and our families. A lot of teachers are going to leave education in light of what's happening with this pandemic and teachers being forced to choose between their health and safety and their families and their jobs. I love my students. I do. They are an extension of my family.
It's my birthday.
Whose birthday?
Me, Taino.
Happy birthday, Taino! I can still maintain some of these relationships with my students, even beyond my classroom. Because I always want them to know that I'm always going to be your teacher.